October 15, 2024. A young black girl collapsed on a cold train station bench, her fragile body barely breathing as thousands of commuters rushed past without a second glance. But when the billionaire who owned the entire station stepped off his private car and saw her lying there, what he did next would expose a secret that shattered everything the world thought they knew about him, and force an entire city to confront the cruelty they'd been ignoring. Would his intervention save her life? Or would the truth behind why he cared so deeply destroy them both? October 15, 2024. Grand Central Metro Station, Chicago. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh white glows across the marble floors of Chicago's busiest train station. Morning commuters flooded through the terminal like a river, briefcases swinging, coffee cups clutched, eyes fixed on departure boards. The air smelled of diesel fuel, burnt coffee, and the metallic tang of cold autumn air seeping through the massive arched entrances. On Platform 7's waiting bench, 15-year-old Maya Brooks lay motionless. Her thin frame curled against the cold metal armrest, one arm dangling limply toward the ground. Her school uniform, a white blouse now gray with dirt, a navy skirt torn at the hem, hung loose on her shrinking body. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, her lips cracked and pale. A backpack, faded and patched with duct tape, rested beneath her head like a makeshift pillow. People rushed past. Hundreds of them, thousands throughout the morning. Their shoes clicked against marble. Their voices echoed off vaulted ceilings, but no one stopped. A businessman in an expensive suit glanced down, then quickly away, adjusting his tie. A mother pulled her child closer, whispering something about staying away from strangers. A security guard noticed her from across the platform, frowned, but returned his attention to his phone. Maya stirred slightly, her fingers twitching. She tried to sit up, but her body wouldn't obey. Her vision blurred, the station lights bleeding into white halos. She'd been here for 2 days now. Or was it 3? Time had become liquid, meaningless. Her stomach cramped with hunger, a familiar pain she'd learned to ignore. The last meal she remembered was the half-eaten sandwich someone had left on a bench yesterday, or the day before. Her water bottle sat empty beside her, and her lips stuck together when she tried to swallow. A group of teenagers passed by, laughing loudly. One noticed her and nudged his friend. "Look at that homeless girl, probably on drugs or something." Their laughter echoed as they walked away, cruel and careless. Maya's hand trembled as she reached for her backpack, pulling out a worn spiral notebook. Inside, pages filled with drawings, sketches of the people who rushed past, of the trains that came and went, of the pigeons that pecked at crumbs near the benches. At the back, tucked carefully in a plastic sleeve, was a photograph. A woman with kind eyes and Maya's same smile, holding a little girl on her lap. Her mother, dead 3 months now. Maya pressed the photo to her chest, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. She had nowhere else to go. The foster system had lost track of her after she'd run from the third home, the one where the older boy wouldn't leave her alone, where bruises bloomed on her arms like dark flowers. The station was warmer than the streets, safer than the shelters where things went missing in the night. Here, at least, she could pretend she was waiting for someone. Pretend she belonged. A woman's voice crackled over the intercom. Train 447 to Detroit now boarding on Platform 9. Maya watched passengers rush toward the platform, dragging suitcases, clutching tickets to somewhere. Anywhere. She closed her eyes, imagining she had a ticket too. Imagining her mother was waiting at the other end, arms open wide. But when she opened her eyes again, reality crashed back. The bench was cold. Her body ached, and the world kept moving past her as if she didn't exist. A maintenance worker approached with a mop and bucket, his eyes settling on Maya with annoyance rather than concern. "Hey kid, you can't sleep here. This ain't a hotel." Maya tried to speak, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. "I'm just waiting for my train." The man snorted. "Yeah, right. Move along before I call security." She attempted to stand, but her legs buckled. The world tilted sideways, darkness creeping at the edges of her vision. She collapsed back onto the bench, her breathing shallow, her heart racing erratically. The maintenance worker muttered something under his breath and walked away, leaving her there as consciousness began slipping away. Maya's last thought was a question that had haunted her for months. Would anyone even notice if she disappeared completely? The station roared on around her. Alive, indifferent, and relentless. The station clock read 3:47 p.m. when Maya finally opened her eyes again. Her mouth felt like sandpaper, her head pounding with a dull, persistent ache. She'd lost hours, maybe an entire day, to the fever that burned through her body. A sharp kick jolted her fully awake. I said move. The security guard towered over her, his badge gleaming under the lights. Officer Daniels, according to the nameplate. His face was hard, unsympathetic. Third time I found you here this week. You're trespassing. Maya pushed herself up on trembling arms. Please, I don't care what you need. This is private property. There are shelters for people like you. People like you. The words stung more than the hunger gnawing at her stomach. Maya gathered her backpack with shaking hands, stuffing the notebook inside. As she tried to stand, her vision swam, and she grabbed the bench for support. I'm leaving, she whispered. But when she took a step, her legs gave out completely. She crumpled to the ground, her palms scraping against the cold marble. The impact sent shooting pain up her wrists. Officer Daniels didn't offer to help. Instead, he spoke into his radio. Yeah, we've got a situation on Platform 7. Possible vagrant. Looks like she's on something. Send backup. I'm not on anything, Maya's voice cracked. I'm just sick. Please. A small crowd had begun to form. Commuters pausing in their rush, phones already out, recording. Maya could hear their whispers, feel their stares like physical weight. Should someone call an ambulance? She's probably just faking it for attention. These kids are always looking for handouts. Maya forced herself to her knees, then to her feet. Pride, maybe the only thing she had left, wouldn't let her stay down. She took one step, then another, even as the world tilted dangerously. She made it 10 feet before collapsing against a concrete pillar, sliding down to sit on the floor. The backup security arrived, a younger officer who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. She's just a kid, Daniels. She's a problem. Get her out of here before the evening rush. Maya closed her eyes, fighting back tears. She wouldn't cry. Not in front of them. Not in front of their cameras. Her hand went to her backpack, fingers finding the inner pocket where she kept her last possession of value. Her mother's silver necklace. A simple chain with a small heart pendant. It had been her grandmother's before that, passed down through 3 generations. Maya had sworn she'd never sell it, no matter how desperate she became. But desperation had teeth. And right now, those teeth were sinking deep. She pulled out the necklace, the silver catching the light. A pawn shop would give her maybe $50. Enough for food. Maybe a cheap motel room for a night. A shower. Clean clothes from a thrift store. As she clutched the necklace, a woman in an expensive coat walked past, pulling her designer purse closer to her body. Her eyes flicked to Maya with barely concealed disgust. They shouldn't allow this in a place like Grand Central. I pay good money to commute here. The words were meant to be heard. Meant to wound. Maya's fingers tightened around the necklace until the edges cut into her palm. The pain felt deserved somehow, like punishment for being alive, for taking up space in a world that had made it clear she wasn't wanted. Officer Daniels approached again, this time with a printed document. This is a citation for loitering. If I see you here again, it's arrest. Understand? Maya took the paper with numb fingers. A citation she couldn't pay. Another mark on a record that would follow her forever, making it harder to find work, to find housing, to find any kind of normal life. I understand, she whispered as the officers walked away, satisfied they'd handled the problem. Maya looked down at the necklace in her hand, the last piece of her mother, the last thread connecting her to a time when she'd been loved, protected, wanted. She pressed it to her lips, tasting salt from tears she couldn't hold back anymore. I'm sorry, Mom, she breathed into the metal. I'm so sorry. The station announcer's voice echoed overhead. "Attention passengers. Please report any suspicious activity to station security." Maya laughed. A bitter, broken sound. She is suspicious now. The problem to be removed. The inconvenience to be solved. But she couldn't leave. Where would she go? The October wind outside cut like razors. The shelters were full. The streets were dangerous after dark. So she stayed, moving to a different platform, finding a darker corner where maybe, just maybe, she could be invisible for a few more hours. As night fell over Chicago, Maya made a decision that felt like giving up and fighting all at once. Tomorrow she'd sell the necklace. Tomorrow, she'll survive one more day. Even if surviving meant losing the last piece of herself that mattered. The next morning arrived with a brutal cold. Maya had spent the night huddled behind a row of vending machines on platform 12, shivering despite the layers of newspaper she'd wrapped around herself. Her fever had worsened. She could feel it in the way her skin burned and her thoughts became sluggish, disconnected. At 6:23 a.m., she stumbled toward the main terminal, the silver necklace clutched in her fist. The pawn shop on State Street opened at 7. Just 40 minutes. She could make it 40 minutes. But her body had other plans. Halfway across the Grand Terminal, her vision darkened at the edges. The marble floor seemed to ripple like water. Maya's knees buckled, and she fell hard, her backpack skidding across the polished stone. The necklace slipped from her fingers, the silver chain pooling beside her like a tiny river. Commuters flowed around her like water around a rock. Some glanced down. Most didn't. A few pulled out phones, not to call for help, but to record. Maya lay there, cheek pressed against cold marble, watching polished shoes walk past. Italian leather, running sneakers, heels clicking a steady rhythm. The world moved at double speed while she existed in slow motion. Then everything stopped. The terminal fell into an eerie hush. Maya couldn't understand why until she heard the footsteps. Measured, deliberate, accompanied by the rustle of expensive fabric. "Clear the area." A voice, deep and commanding. Now. Through her blurred vision, Maya saw the shoes first. Custom Oxford brogues, probably worth more than most people made in a month. Then charcoal slacks with a knife-edge crease. A hand appeared in her line of sight, strong, with a platinum watch that caught the light. "Can you hear me?" The voice was closer now, gentler but still carrying undeniable authority. Maya managed a weak nod. "Don't move. Help is coming." The man crouched down and Maya finally saw his face. Late 40s, with silver threading through dark hair, sharp cheekbones, and eyes that held something she hadn't seen directed at her in months. Genuine concern. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm Jonathan." His hand moved to check her pulse at her wrist, his touch surprisingly gentle. "Jonathan Pierce. You're gonna be all right, Maya. I promise you that." The name registered somewhere in her foggy mind. Jonathan Pierce, the tech billionaire. The man who'd revolutionized digital infrastructure. The man who owned half of Chicago's commercial real estate, including, "You own this station?" Maya breathed. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, that she knew. "Yes, which means you're under my protection while you're here." He turned to someone Maya couldn't see. "Get the paramedics. And Marcus, bring my car around. She's coming with us." "Sir, perhaps we should just—" Another voice began. "Did I stutter, Marcus?" The terminal was filled with whispers now. Phones were everywhere, recording the billionaire kneeling beside a homeless girl on his station floor. Maya could hear the murmurs. "Is that Jonathan Pierce? What's he doing?" "Probably a publicity stunt." Jonathan ignored them all. His attention remained fixed on Maya. He'd noticed the necklace lying near her hand and picked it up carefully, studying the heart pendant. "This is beautiful. Your mother's." Maya's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. He pressed it gently into her palm, closing her fingers around it. "Then you hold on to it. Whatever you were planning to do with this, don't. Some things are worth more than money." Paramedics arrived with a stretcher, their movement sufficient. As they began checking her vitals, one muttered to his partner, "Severe dehydration. Possible pneumonia. Temps 103.4. I'm taking her to Northwestern Memorial, Jonathan announced, standing. My personal physician will meet us there. Sir, we should transport her to county. The paramedic began. Jonathan's expression hardened. Northwestern. Dr. Rachel Chun. She's already been notified. He looked down at Maya as they lifted her onto the stretcher. You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you or turn you away. As they wheeled her toward the private exit, Maya caught fragments of conversation. Why would Jonathan Pierce care about some random homeless kid? There's got to be an angle. Rich people don't just help for no reason. Probably wants the good press. Through her fever haze, Maya wondered if they were right. Men like Jonathan Pierce didn't help people like her without wanting something in return. The world had taught her that lesson well. But then she felt his hand rest briefly on her shoulder as they moved through the corridor. A gesture so simple, so human, that it made her throat tighten. Rest now, he said quietly. We'll figure everything else out later. As they emerged into the cold October morning, a sleek black SUV waited. Jonathan helped the paramedics load the stretcher, then climbed in beside her, his presence filling the space with an odd sense of security Maya didn't trust but desperately wanted to believe in. The vehicle pulled away from Grand Central Metro Station, leaving behind the crowds, the cameras, and the whispers of a city that couldn't understand why a man worth billions would stop for a girl worth nothing. Maya's fingers tightened around her mother's necklace as consciousness began to slip away again. For the first time in 3 months, she let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, someone actually cared whether she lived or died. Even if she couldn't understand why. Maya woke in a hospital room so white it hurt her eyes. The sheets were impossibly soft. The air smelled of lavender instead of antiseptic. And for a moment she thought she'd died and this was some kind of afterlife. Then she saw the 4 in her arm and the monitors beeping steadily beside her. You're awake. A woman in a white coat smiled from the doorway. I'm Dr. Chun. You've been asleep for about 16 hours. Your body needs it. Maya's throat was dry, but when she tried to speak, the doctor was already pouring water into a cup with a straw. Small sips. Your system's been through a lot. The cool water felt like heaven. Where am I? Northwestern Memorial. Private wing. Dr. Chun checked the monitors, making notes on a tablet. You had severe dehydration, bacterial pneumonia, and your body was essentially shutting down. Another day or 2 without treatment. She didn't finish the sentence. Maya's hand instinctively went to her neck, panic rising. My necklace. Right here. Dr. Chun retrieved it from the bedside drawer. Mr. Pierce made sure it was kept safe. Mr. Pierce. Jonathan. The memories flooded back. The station floor, his hand on her shoulder, the promise that she was safe. He paid for all this? Maya whispered. He did more than that. Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. Maya, when you're feeling stronger, there are some things we need to discuss. Social workers, your situation, where you'll go from here. Before Maya could respond, the door opened and Jonathan Pierce walked in, dressed more casually than before. Dark jeans, a gray sweater, but still carrying that unmistakable air of authority. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept. You're up. Good. He pulled a chair beside the bed. How are you feeling? Better. Thank you for... Maya's voice cracked. Why did you help me? Jonathan's jaw tightened slightly. Because you needed help. That's reason enough. But it wasn't, and they both knew it. Men like him didn't just help. There were always cameras, always angles, always something. As if reading her thoughts, Jonathan pulled out his phone and turned it toward her. The screen showed a news headline. Tech billionaire Jonathan Pierce rescues homeless teen from train station floor. Below it, the comments section exploded with reactions. Convenient timing with his new development project needing city approval. Rich men use poor black girls for positive PR. Tale as old as time. Where are the cameras? This reeks of a publicity stunt. Maya's stomach turned. They think you're using you. Jonathan finished, setting the phone down. Yes, they do. His voice was calm, but something dark flickered in his eyes. The video from the station went viral. 5 million views in 12 hours. Everyone has an opinion about my motives. Are they right? The question escaped before Maya could stop it. Jonathan leaned back, studying her with those sharp eyes. Would you believe me if I said no? Maya didn't answer. She couldn't. Over the next 3 days, as Maya's strength returned, the storm outside intensified. The hospital had to increase security because reporters camped outside, demanding interviews. Social media exploded with theories, accusations, and viral posts. A local news anchor pontificated. Jonathan Pierce's company just submitted a $1 billion proposal for station renovations. Days later, he finds a homeless girl there. The timing is suspicious. Conservative pundits declared, another example of the homeless crisis being weaponized for political gain. Progressive activists countered, this one girl gets a private hospital room while thousands suffer. That's not charity, that's theater. Maya watched it all from her hospital bed, feeling like a specimen under glass. People dissected her life without knowing anything about it. They debated her worth, her authenticity, whether she deserved help. The worst came from a viral Twitter thread that somehow obtained her background. Maya Brooks, mother died of overdose. 3 failed foster placements. Ran away from the system. This isn't a victim. It's a cautionary tale about wasted resources. Maya read the words until they blurred. Her mother hadn't overdosed. She died from an undiagnosed heart condition while working 3 jobs to keep them housed. But the truth didn't matter. The narrative was already written. She threw the phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. Doctor Chun found her sobbing an hour later. Maya, they don't know anything, Maya choked out. They don't know her. They don't know me. But they've decided who we are anyway. That evening, Jonathan returned. He saw the broken phone, the tear-stained face, and something in his expression hardened into steel. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow, he announced, to address the speculation. Maya's eyes widened. No, that'll make it worse. More people talking, more cameras, more truth, Jonathan interrupted. They want to know why I helped you? I'll tell them. They want to question your worth? I'll make them reconsider. He crouched beside her bed, his voice gentler. You don't have to be there. But I won't let them turn your suffering into a punchline. Why do you care what they think? Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. Because I know what it's like to be judged for things beyond your control. To have people decide who you are based on circumstances, not character. Something in his tone suggested a deeper wound. But before Maya could ask, a soft knock interrupted. A woman entered, professional, carrying a folder thick with documents. Mr. Pierce, the state social services need to meet with Maya. They're discussing placement options. Maya's blood ran cold. Placement, foster care, the system that had chewed her up and spit her out 3 times already. No, she sat up too quickly, dizziness washing over her. I'm not going back. I'll run again. You won't have to. Jonathan's voice cut through her panic. I'm working on an alternative arrangement. A group home I'm funding specifically for teens aging out of foster care. Safe, supervised, but with dignity and choice. Maya stared at him. You're building a home? I'm converting one of my properties. It'll take a few weeks, but until then. He glanced at the social worker, some unspoken communication passing between them. There are temporary solutions. The social worker cleared her throat. Maya, we need to discuss this properly. There are protocols, assessments. Then assess, Jonathan said firmly. But do it with the understanding that she has options now. Real ones. After they left, Maya sat in silence, processing everything. The hospital room felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Outside her window, she could see news vans, their satellite dishes pointed at the building like accusations. They're going to destroy you, she whispered. Help me. They'll twist it until everyone believes you're the villain. Jonathan walked to the window, hands in his pockets, silhouette dark against the city lights. Let them try. I've been called worse by better people. He turned back to her. The question isn't what they'll say about me, Maya. Is what happens to you when the cameras move on. That's what keeps me up at night. Maya pulled her mother's necklace from beneath her hospital gown, running her thumb over the heart pendant. Why does it keep you up? You don't even know me. Jonathan's expression shifted, something raw and unguarded crossing his features before his composure returned. Maybe not, but I know what it's like to be unseen, and I'm tired of looking away. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning Maya didn't fully understand but somehow felt in her bones. Outside, the city argued about motives and optics and the price of compassion. But in that hospital room, a girl who'd been invisible for months finally felt seen, even if neither of them fully understood why that mattered so much. The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. By noon, Maya's fever had returned with a vengeance. Dr. Chun stood over her bed, forehead creased with concern. Temperatures 104.2 and climbing. The infection's fighting back harder than we anticipated. She adjusted the foredrip. Maya, I need to be honest with you. Your immune system is severely compromised from months of malnutrition and exposure. We're looking at possible sepsis if this doesn't turn around in the next few hours. Maya barely heard her. The room spun, walls melting into each other. She could hear voices, her mother's voice, calling her name from somewhere far away. Get Mr. Pierce, Dr. Chun instructed a nurse sharply. Now. Jonathan arrived within minutes, still wearing the suit he'd chosen for the press conference. He took one look at Maya's deteriorating condition and his composure cracked. What's happening? Her body's shutting down again. The damage from living on the streets, it's extensive. We're doing everything we can. But, Dr. Chen's voice dropped. She's fighting, but she's been fighting alone for so long. Sometimes the body just gives up. Jonathan moved to Maya's bedside. Her eyes were half closed, lips moving soundlessly. He took her hand, burning hot against his palm. Maya, stay with me. You hear me? Stay. Her eyes flickered open, unfocused. Mom! The word hit Jonathan like a physical blow. He glanced at Dr. Chun, who shook her head slightly. Delirious. I'm here, Jonathan said quietly, his throat tight. I'm right here. Maya's grip tightened weakly. I tried to be good enough. Why wasn't I good enough? Jonathan's jaw clenched. He'd heard those words before. Different voice, different hospital room, but the same crushing weight of a child believing they were the problem. You are enough, he said, voice rough. You've always been enough. Alarms began screaming. Maya's body seized, monitors flashing red. Medical staff flooded the room, pushing Jonathan back. He stood frozen, watching them work, watching this girl he barely knew fight for her life. And suddenly he was 15 years ago in the past, in a different hospital, watching his younger sister Vanessa fight the same battle. 15 years old, homeless after their father's business collapsed and their mother abandoned them. He'd been 17, working 3 jobs, trying to keep them both alive on the streets of Detroit. He'd failed. Vanessa had died from pneumonia in a county hospital that treated her like a statistic. The doctors had been overworked, the resources inadequate, and by the time anyone took her seriously, it was too late. Jonathan had built an empire from that grief. Every dollar earned was a monument to the sister he couldn't save. Every business success was an attempt to fill the void her loss had carved into him. And now, watching Maya struggle for breath, he was 17 again. Powerless, terrified, and drowning in the same failure. Don't you dare, he whispered, fists clenched. Don't you dare give up. Dr. Chun worked with fierce precision, calling orders, adjusting medications. Minutes stretched like hours. Then, slowly, the monitors steadied. Maya's breathing evened out. The crisis passed. Dr. Chun sagged against the counter, exhausted. She's stable. For now. Jonathan released a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. He sank into the chair beside Maya's bed, head in his hands. Mr. Pierce. Dr. Chen's voice was gentle. The press conference. Cancel it. Sir. There are over 50 reporters waiting. I said cancel it. Jonathan looked up, and his eyes were raw. Nothing matters except her fighting through this. Nothing. Dr. Chun studied him for a long moment, then nodded and left quietly. Alone with Maya's unconscious form, Jonathan finally let the walls crumble. Tears he'd held back for 15 years fell silently as he gripped the bed rail. Her name was Vanessa, he whispered to the sleeping girl. My sister. She was your age when she died. I was supposed to protect her, supposed to keep her safe, but I was just a kid myself. Broke. Powerless. Invisible. He wiped his eyes roughly. I swore I'd never be powerless again. Built everything so I'd never have to watch someone suffer because they didn't have enough money, enough connections, enough worth in society's eyes. Maya stirred slightly, and Jonathan leaned closer. But then I saw you on that station floor, my station floor, and it was like looking at Vanessa all over again. And I realized all this power, all this money, it means nothing if I can't use it to do what I couldn't do then. His voice broke. Save one girl who the world decided didn't matter. He pressed Maya's hand gently. So you fight, you understand? You fight because Vanessa couldn't. You fight because every breath you take proves that the world was wrong about you. About both of you. Hours passed. Jonathan didn't move from that chair. His phone buzzed constantly. His assistant, his PR team, the board members demanding to know why he'd canceled the conference. He ignored them all. Around midnight, Maya's eyes finally opened, clearer now. She saw Jonathan slumped in the chair beside her, still holding her hand, exhausted but present. You stayed, she whispered. Jonathan straightened, relief flooding his features. Of course I stayed. The press conference. Doesn't matter. Maya's eyes glistened. I heard you, when I was, wherever I was. I heard you talking about your sister. Jonathan went still. Maya, is that why you helped me? Because I remind you of her? The question hung heavy in the air. Jonathan could have deflected, could have given a political answer. Instead, he chose the truth. At first, maybe. But you're not her, Maya. You're your own person, fighting your own battle. And somewhere along the way, this stopped being about Vanessa and started being about you. He paused. About making sure you get the chance she never had. Tears slipped down Maya's cheeks. I'm nobody. Just another foster kid the system broke. Why does my chance matter more than anyone else's? It doesn't, Jonathan said quietly. Which is why I'm converting 5 of my properties into safe houses for kids aging out of foster care. Why I'm creating a foundation to fund medical care for homeless youth. Why I'm using every resource I have to change a system that failed both you and Vanessa. Maya stared at him. Because of me? Because of her. Because of you. Because of every kid who's been told they don't matter. Jonathan's voice strengthened. The world wants to make this about my motives, my reputation. Let them. What matters is that kids like you stop dying on the streets while people walk past. Maya was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, voice small. Will you tell me about her? About Vanessa? Jonathan nodded, settling back in his chair. And as dawn light began filtering through the hospital windows, he talked. About a girl who loved to draw, who made him laugh even when they were sleeping in shelters, who believed in tomorrow even when tomorrow seemed impossible. He talked until his voice grew hoarse, until Maya's eyes grew heavy with healing sleep, until the weight he'd carried for 15 years felt just a little bit lighter. Because this time, the story wouldn't end in a cemetery. This time, he wouldn't fail. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in front of a full-length mirror, barely recognizing herself. The hospital gown had been replaced by a deep blue dress that Dr. Chan had helped her pick out. Her hair, washed and trimmed, framed a face that had regained some color. She looked almost healthy, almost normal. You don't have to do this, Jonathan said from the doorway. He wore a sharp navy suit, but his expression was gentle. We can find another way to announce the foundation without putting you in front of cameras. Maya touched her mother's necklace, now polished and gleaming against her collarbone. No, I want to do this. They've been telling my story wrong for weeks. It's time I tell it myself. The event was being held at Grand Central Metro Station, the very place where Jonathan had found her. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Platform 7 had been transformed into an elegant venue, with a stage, seating for 200 people, and massive screens displaying the new Foundation's mission. As Maya and Jonathan arrived, camera flashes erupted like lightning. Reporters shouted questions over each other. Maya, how does it feel to be Jonathan Pierce's charity project? Mr. Pierce, critics say you're exploiting a vulnerable teenager for tax breaks. Is it true you're being paid to appear today? Jonathan's security team moved to block them, but Maya surprised everyone by stopping. She turned to face the reporters directly, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I'm not being paid. I'm not being exploited. I'm here because I almost died, and nobody cared until someone decided I was worth saving. She paused, letting the words sink in. Ask yourselves why that is. The questions faltered. Maya walked past them into the station. Inside, the terminal had been closed to regular commuters for the event. Maya saw faces she recognized from news broadcasts, city council members, celebrities, other billionaires. They'd come out of curiosity, obligation, or perhaps genuine interest. But they were here, and so were others. Teenagers from homeless shelters, foster care workers, social workers who'd spent years fighting a broken system. Jonathan had made sure they had front-row seats. As the event began, Jonathan took the stage. Gone was the controlled businessman. In his place stood someone raw, unguarded. 15 years ago, I lost my sister Vanessa on the streets of Detroit, he began, his voice carrying across the silent terminal. She was 15, homeless, sick, and invisible to a world that had decided she didn't matter. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't in the press release. This was new. I built my fortune on the promise that I'd never be powerless again, that I'd never watch someone suffer because society deemed them unworthy of help. His eyes found Maya in the wings. But 3 weeks ago, I realized I'd broken that promise every single day. I walked through the station without seeing the Maya Brooks of the world. He gestured to the screens, which lit up with statistics, the number of homeless youth in Chicago, the percentage who die on the streets, the systematic failures that create and perpetuate the crisis. This foundation isn't a charity. It's a reckoning. With myself, with this city, with a society that's normalized looking away. Jonathan's voice strengthened. Starting today, 5 of my properties will become transitional homes for youth aging out of foster care. Free medical care, job training, education support, but more than that, dignity, choice, the belief that their lives have value. The crowd erupted in applause, but Jonathan raised his hand for silence. But I can't do this alone, and neither can Maya, which is why she's going to tell you what really happens when the cameras leave, when the viral moment fades, when society's attention moves on to the next tragedy. Maya's stomach clenched. This was it. She walked onto the stage, each step feeling like miles. The lights were blinding, the audience a blur of faces. She gripped the podium to steady herself. My name is Maya Brooks, she began, voice shaking. 3 months ago, my mother died. Not from drugs like the internet said. From working herself to death trying to keep us housed. She saw people lean forward, phones being lowered. I ended up in foster care. 3 different homes in 2 months. In the last one, her voice caught. She felt Jonathan's presence behind her, not touching but near enough to ground her. I wasn't safe, so I ran. Maya's hands trembled, but she continued. I lived in this station because it was warmer than the streets. I drew pictures in a notebook because it was the only thing that made me feel human. And when I collapsed on that bench, I'd already decided that maybe the world was right. Maybe it didn't matter. Tears streamed down faces in the audience now. Even the hardened reporters looked shaken. Jonathan Pierce didn't save me for publicity. He saved me because when everyone else looked away, he couldn't. Maya's voice grew stronger. But here's the truth they won't put in headlines. I'm one of thousands. And most of them won't get a billionaire to notice them. Most of them will die on benches or in alleys. And the world will keep walking past. She pulled out her old notebook, holding it up. These are drawings of every person who walked past me in this station. Hundreds of them. They had phones, money, the power to call for help. But they chose to see me as a problem, not a person. The terminal was dead silent. So when you leave here today, when you see someone on the streets, on a bench, invisible and suffering, remember this moment. Remember that you have a choice: to see them, to help, or to keep walking. Maya stepped back from the podium. The applause started slowly, then built to a thunderous crescendo, but she barely heard it. Her eyes found Jonathan's, and he nodded once. A gesture of pride, of understanding, of solidarity. As the formal program continued, a reporter managed to corner Maya backstage. That was quite a speech, but people are still asking, what does Jonathan Pierce get out of this? Nobody's that altruistic. Maya met the reporter's skeptical gaze steadily. Maybe he gets to sleep at night knowing he didn't fail twice. Maybe that's enough. Later, as the event wound down, Maya stood on platform 7 where she'd first collapsed. Someone had left flowers on the bench, a memorial of sorts. Jonathan joined her, hands in his pockets. They're going to keep questioning this, Maya said quietly. Your motives. Whether I'm really worth all this effort. Jonathan was quiet for a moment. Let me ask you something. Do you think Vanessa was worth saving? Of course, Maya said without hesitation. Then you have your answer. He looked at her directly. You're both worth it. Every kid out there is worth it. And if people can't see that, it says everything about them and nothing about you. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from one of the teenagers who'd been in the audience, from a shelter on the south side. Thank you for saying what we've all been feeling, for making them see us. More texts followed. Dozens of them. Kids who'd been invisible finally feeling seen. Maya showed Jonathan the messages. He read them in silence, something shifting in his expression. This is just the beginning, he said finally. The foundation, the homes, the program, it's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's a start. Then we keep going, Maya said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. We keep fighting until every kid on these streets has a choice. Have a chance. Jonathan extended his hand. Partners. Maya shook it firmly. Partners. As they walked out of Grand Central Metro Station together, cameras still flashing, questions still being shouted, Maya realized something profound. She'd entered this station 3 weeks ago ready to disappear. She was leaving it ready to make sure no one else ever felt that invisible again. The battle wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But for the first time since her mother died, Maya wasn't fighting alone. 6 months later, Maya stood in the living room of what used to be a luxury penthouse and was now something far more valuable, a home. The Pierce Foundation's first transitional house had opened in March, housing 12 teenagers aging out of foster care. The second floor still smelled of fresh paint. In the common area, a girl named Destiny practiced guitar, while 2 boys argued good-naturedly over a chess game. This was normal. This was life. Maya had her own room, small but hers. On the desk sat her notebook, now joined by proper sketchbooks that Jonathan had given her. The drawings had evolved from desperate scratches on paper to detailed portraits of the kids she now lived with. Each face told a story of survival. Dr. Chun visited weekly, no longer as Maya's physician but as the foundation's medical director. She'd left her private practice to run the health program full-time, ensuring every kid in the system had access to real care, not emergency room roulette. Your blood work came back perfect, Dr. Chun said, reviewing her tablet during a check-in. 6 months ago, I wasn't sure you'd make it 6 weeks. Look at you now. Maya smiled, but it was bittersweet. She was thriving, yes, but the news constantly reminded her that thousands of others weren't. Just last week, a 16-year-old had frozen to death under a bridge on the west side. The outrage lasted exactly 1 news cycle before the city moved on. Jonathan arrived that evening for the foundation's board meeting, held in the house's conference room. Maya had insisted on attending. She wasn't just a beneficiary anymore, but a youth advisor with actual voting power on programming decisions. The 3rd house opens next month. Marcus, Jonathan's assistant-turned-foundation director, reported, "We've received over 400 applications for 15 spots." The number hit Maya like a fist. What happens to the other 385? The room fell quiet. Jonathan's expression tightened. We expand. Faster. I'm liquidating more assets. Converting more properties. It's still not enough, Maya interrupted, her voice sharp with frustration. We're putting band-aids on a system that needs surgery. Jonathan didn't argue. He'd learned in these months that Maya's anger was valid. Necessary even. You're right, which is why next week I'm testifying before the state legislature. Pushing for policy changes. Increased funding for foster care. Mandatory training for placement families. They'll say you're overstepping, one board member cautioned. That you're using your wealth to influence politics. Good, Jonathan said flatly. I am, and I'll keep doing it until kids stop dying on the streets. After the meeting, Maya and Jonathan walked through the house together. In the kitchen, a cooking class was underway, learning life skills many had never been taught. In the study room, a tutor helped with college applications. Normal things. Revolutionary things. I got accepted to Roosevelt University, Maya said quietly. Full scholarship. Art program. Jonathan stopped walking. Maya, that's incredible. I almost didn't apply. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. I kept thinking, who am I to take a scholarship when I barely survived high school? When 6 months ago I was sleeping on a bench. And what changed your mind? Maya pulled out her phone, showing him a message from a girl named Jade, 13, recently placed in the second transitional house. The message read, I want to go to college like you. If you can make it, maybe I can too. I realized it's not about me anymore, Maya said, voice thick. Everything I do now, every choice I make. Kids are watching, hoping. If I give up on myself, I'm telling them to give up too. Jonathan's eyes glistened, but he smiled. Your mother would be so proud of you. Maya touched her necklace. She wore it every day now, no longer a thing to pawn but a reminder of love that survived even death. I think about her constantly, about how she worked herself to death trying to give me a chance. And now I have one, because you saw me when you could have walked past. I almost did, Jonathan admitted quietly. That morning, I was late for a meeting. I saw you on that bench and my first instinct was to let security handle it. To keep walking like everyone else. What stopped you? He was quiet for a long moment. Vanessa. I saw her face instead of yours, and I couldn't. His voice broke slightly. I couldn't fail her again. Maya stepped closer. You didn't fail her, Jonathan. The system did. Society did. You were 17 and trying to survive yourself. I know that now. He looked around the house at the kids laughing and studying and simply being. Therapy helps. So does this. Turning grief into something that saves lives instead of destroys them. They walked to the rooftop garden. A space the kids had designed themselves, with vegetables growing in raised beds and a mural painted on the wall. Maya had led the mural project. It showed a train station transformed into a garden, with flowers growing through the platforms and children playing where commuters once rushed past unseeing. At the center, 2 figures stood together. A girl and a man, hands clasped, facing forward. The press still questions us, Maya said, looking at the mural. Every article about the foundation mentions our controversial relationship. Some call you a savior. Others call you an opportunist using me for redemption. What do you call me? Maya considered the question seriously. A man trying to fix what broke him. And maybe that's the most honest thing anyone can do. Jonathan's phone buzzed, it always did. But this time he turned it off completely. I'm having dinner with the kids tonight. Real dinner, not a working meal. Care to join? Wouldn't miss it. As they headed downstairs, Maya passed the wall where each resident's story was displayed. Not their trauma, but their dreams. Destiny wanted to be a music therapist. Marcus Jr. wanted to study engineering. Jade wanted to be an artist like Maya. Maya had written hers simply. I want to make sure no one else has to choose between dignity and survival. Dinner was chaotic and loud. 12 teenagers, Dr. Chun, Marcus, and Jonathan crammed around a table meant for 8. They argued about movies, debated politics, teased each other mercilessly. It was messy and imperfect and beautiful. Halfway through, Jade raised her glass of juice. I want to make a toast to Maya, who showed us it's possible to go from invisible to unstoppable. To Jonathan, Destiny added, for proving that not all rich people are heartless. Jonathan shook his head, raising his own glass. To every kid in this room, and every kid still out there waiting for their chance. You're not invisible. You never were. The world was just too blind to see you. They clinked glasses. Juice, water, soda, and Maya felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was life. Messy, complicated, hopeful life. Later that night, Maya returned to her room and opened her sketchbook to a blank page. She drew the train station again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was filled with people not walking past, but stopping, seeing, helping, choosing to care. At the bottom, she wrote, Grand Central Metro Station, October 15th, 2024, the day someone finally stopped. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Pierce Foundation announces 10th transitional house, expanding to 5 cities. 10 houses. 100 kids were housed. Hundreds more on waiting lists. It wasn't enough, would never be enough, but it was more than the nothing that had existed before. Maya closed the sketchbook and looked out her window at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, a kid was sleeping on a bench, invisible to a rushing world. Somewhere, someone was deciding whether to stop or keep walking. She couldn't save them all. Neither could Jonathan. But they could change the equation, shift the narrative, prove that caring was possible. And maybe, just maybe, someone else would stop. And then another. And another. Until the day came when no child had to lie motionless on a train station bench, waiting for the world to decide they mattered. Maya picked up her phone and texted Jonathan, same time next week? Board meeting. His response came quickly, wouldn't miss it. We've got work to do. Maya smiled, setting the phone aside. Yes, they did. A lifetime of work, perhaps. But for the first time since her mother died, she had something more valuable than safety or comfort. She had purpose, she had hope, and she had proof that sometimes, when the right person stops at the right moment, everything can change. The train station where she'd almost died had become the birthplace of her second chance. And now, she'd spend the rest of her life making sure others got theirs too. One stop at a time.